Hi, Cathy Madeo here, back with another video. This one all about how to help you deepen your splits. Do your splits look a little bit like this? There's this misconception with splits that it's all about having open hamstrings. And while you do need some nice open hamstrings in order to do splits, that's only half of the equation. There's a whole other leg involved in splits that many people overlook and forget to stretch before even attempting a split. This video is going to cover the 5 yoga poses that I think will really help you stretch out your back leg to help deepen and access your splits. For this video, you'll need some wall space, a cushion or blanket, and something to prop up your back leg. Let's get started. We'll start with our first pose, laying on our back. And what you want is a pretty thick cushion. You could also use a set of blocks or something that's going to go underneath your sacrum. Your sacrum is not your lumbar spine. It's not the part that curves in. It's the flat part below that, just before kind of the meat of your glutes begins. So that's where we're trying to target. So you'll lay down on whatever prop you're using, and take a moment to bring your shoulder blades in so that your chest is stretching, and then begin to straighten both legs. Now, if you feel any tenderness in the low back, you could do one leg at a time like this and then switch. And you want to completely relax your legs. In fact, you can have them a little bit wider than hips distance, let the feet flop out. And we're trying to stretch here the psoas muscle, the deep muscle that goes all the way from our spine to our legs. And so this is a passive stretch. And now, of course, the higher you lift your hips, the deeper the stretch. So if you're not feeling much of anything, then continue to elevate. So we'll hold this for at least a minute, and you can actually hold this a lot longer. And one of the best ways to access this deep psoas stretch is actually to lay down on your bed and let one of the legs dangle off the side of the bed. That way it really has the leg has somewhere to go. The psoas will stretch deeper, and then you've also got the force of gravity helping weigh down the leg and stretch the psoas. It's probably the single best stretch to stretch your psoas. We'll be here a little bit longer, so if you're doing one leg at a time, you can switch. And you can even just close your eyes here. This is a great time to just calm your central nervous system. Let the prop support you and just do the work. There's really nothing to do here but get out of your own way. Take a few more breaths, just feeling this gentle stretch along the front body. From here, you'll bend your knees, lift your hips, and just slide the prop out from underneath you, and we will come onto our belly. So from this prone position, we'll go into our next pose. From Sphinx pose, we're going to work into half frog pose. We'll pause here in our Sphinx pose and just want you to notice that you are getting a stretch of your psoas and your front body here, which is ultimately going to help that back leg in your split. Now, without using your hands to start, I want you to point your right foot and bend your leg. Try to keep your hips on the ground and straighten. So we're warming up the hamstring a little bit. The hamstring is the muscle that's helped bending the knee and sending your heel towards your hip. Now, I want you to keep your right heel as close to your hip as you can. Reach around with your right hand, see if you could grab the foot. Now, if you need a strap or any prop, just use that as needed. So this is our half frog pose here. You'll notice I've flipped my fingertips to point and wrap over the toes. So chest is opening, and we're also getting into the quadricep here. So the quads and the psoas here to help stretch that back leg for our splits. One more breath, and we'll switch sides. So left foot is pointed, engage the hamstring, send your left heel to your hip. Take a couple more of these. And we'll reach around with the left hand. I'm grabbing the inside of the foot. Turn the fingers forward if you can. If not, you just stay right here. Whole purpose really is to get the psoas and the quadricep to stretch. Lift up through the chest. You can engage your glute muscles, and you can actively press the top of the right foot into the mat. You're gazing forward. One more breath, and we'll release. Bring both arms into crocodile pose and just rest here for a moment. Release the low back. We'll bend the legs and windshield wiper your feet side to side, and we'll move on to our next pose. For our next pose, you can come onto your hands and knees to start, and we'll thread our right leg through. We're setting up for pigeon prep, but we're not going to fold as is commonly done. Curl your back toes under, lift your back knee in order to send the hips as far back as they go as you set your pelvis down. Now, if you notice you're dumping into that right hip, I want you to take your right heel, slide it in a little bit, and then square your hips towards the front of the mat. So your left leg is straight back behind you. Your hip points are facing forward. And what I want you to do is actually stay upright. The moment we begin to fold, we're not really stretching the psoas at that moment. We're getting into the piriformis and the glutes. So I want you to stay upright so you can continue to lengthen the psoas, as well as getting a nice hip opener of the front leg. Now, I have a spine injury, so I can't go back much farther, but you can continue to walk your hands back so that your shoulders are stacked right over your hips, and that will continue to increase the stretch. Now, if your hips are not on the ground at all, you can also roll up a blanket or put that cushion under your hips. We'll take one more breath. And we'll switch sides so we can move back through our tabletop. Watch any cute puppies. So we're heel toeing the left foot towards the right hand. Curl your right toes under, lengthen the back leg behind you, set your pelvis down. You can uncurl the toes once you have that. And again, we're staying nice and upright, looking for this deep stretch. And you'll notice this is pretty much the back leg in our splits. So the more you can get your shoulders to stack over your hips while your pelvis is down on the ground, that is the direction you're heading. Several breaths here. You can also engage your right glute muscle that sends signals to stretch the psoas. We'll take a couple more breaths. And we'll release back through tabletop. You can take a quick child's pose if you'd like, and we'll move on to our fourth pose. Our next pose will be a lizard pose with our back leg lifted. You can use a cushion, you could use a part of your couch or a low chair or a ottoman or anything like that will work. We'll come into lizard. So right foot is forward, your arms are to the inside. We'll stay up on our hands here and we're going to lift that back leg. Now you want to avoid having your knee on the prop, whatever you're using. So somewhere along the shin bone is good. And we'll begin as your body begins to open. If you can come onto your forearms, you'll come onto your forearms. And if not, just stay right up here. What I want you to feel, and perhaps you can visually see in me, is that my pelvis now has all of this space to be able to sink down. And I almost envision like it being a kind of anchor, like the weight of my pelvis with the force of gravity allows me to deepen in this pose. And the lift of the back leg, the bottom of the back leg, is also increasing the stretch. So we are aiming to hold these kind of stretches for at least a minute. So we want to go deep into stretching. We'll take a couple more breaths. Just releasing, letting the prop do the work. We'll come up onto our hands if you're on your forearms, and we'll switch sides. So left foot forward, and that's deep. You might need a minute there as your ligaments and your joints kind of recoil. That's normal. So getting into position here, feeling the weight of the pelvis, and either staying on your hands or coming onto your forearms. If you're on your forearms, remember to pull the chest forward. It's like Sphinx pose. And we'll just breathe here. It's nice in these deep stretches to just feel sensations in your body so you can understand what's going on. And for many years, I thought that the sensations I was feeling was pain and maybe I was going too deep, and then I realized it's just discomfort. We are putting tension in our joints. So discomfort is very different than pain. Pain would be, you don't want stabbing or tingling or burning feelings, but little discomfort's okay. Take 2 more breaths here. We'll come onto our hands, reset, and we'll set up for our next pose. We'll move to the wall and make sure you have a cushion or a blanket. So our 5th and final pose is a pose called King Arthur. You'll have your back foot against the wall and your knee on your cushion. So place your cushion pretty close to the wall there. So take your left knee, put it on your prop, top of the left foot's pressing there, and then your front foot is forward, so your front leg is in a 90-degree angle. You're basically in a lunge with the back knee down. You can also have props underneath your hands if balance is an issue. And what you're trying to do is get your hips to go back towards the heel. So the wall provides that stabilization so that we don't have to reach around and grab the back foot with our hand, which often inhibits many of us. And it also gives us something to press into to increase the stretch. So taking deep breaths, experiencing where you're feeling the stretch. I know I'm feeling it in my quads right now. Now, if you can continue to work your chest back and your shoulders back, maybe even as close to the wall as possible, that will continue to intensify the stretch. And then if we want to go even deeper, we would stretch our arms up against the wall. Deep breaths here. Take 1, to 2 more yoga breaths, so long breaths. And we'll gently release. I'll throw in a little bonus here. You can also come into a kind of lizard pose here with the hips down. Move your right foot out. So that is also a great stretch. But for now, we will carry on and bring our right knee down, left foot forward, and work the second side. So adjusting as needed. Take your time. This is a really deep stretch. Hips moving back towards the wall. Spine upright. Crown of the head reaches up. And again, you're working as best as you can. It's your practice, right? But working towards moving the shoulders towards the wall. And then if you want to intensify, you'll raise your arms above your head. And breathe, and directing your attention to where you're feeling the most sensation and seeing if you can find some ease there and lengthening your breath a little bit more. And when you're ready, release. I hope this video was useful to you. Drop me a comment and give me a like if it was. And if you haven't already subscribed to this channel, please do. Check out the description box for a freebie for you all about flexibility. And I'll see you in the next video.